All right, guys, hopefully you are being wonderful students while I'm away and you are all seated quietly, waiting for the teacher, waiting for the video, and you're ready to go. So what you should have is a reflection coordinate grid. You should have a little baggie that has 4 different letter L's in it and a stick of glue. The only other thing you need is a pen or pencil, okay? Hopefully you have all those things. If you don't, make sure that you get them. The first thing that I want you to do is to graph the coordinates -8, +2. -8, +2. Remember, we run and then we jump. So -8, +2. Okay. That is going to be point L, and what I want you to do is take your blue L and place it where the bottom left-hand corner is on the L. Okay. Once you've got that figured, I want you to glue it down there where the bottom left-hand corner is at the L. Okay. All right, let's make sure we write the coordinates here. -8, +2. And I also want you to label this L as our original, because this is the one that we're going to start out with and then do all of our adjustments from. Okay. All right. I want to first, after you've done that, review from yesterday. So I want us to review translation. Do you remember what a translation is? Hopefully you remember that a translation will slide a figure. It'll slide it up, down, right, left. It can do more than one. Okay. What I want you to do is take your orange L, and I want us to take this point and translate it 11 units to the right and 10 units down. 11 to the right and 10 down. So from your original point, 11 right and 10 down. Okay. That is our new point L, or L prime. Remember, we use that prime whenever we've moved it. Let's make sure to get the coordinates there. 3, -8. Okay. So remember, translation just slides our L. So I want you to take your orange one. I want you to slide it, that 11 to the right and 10 down. I want you to glue it so that that bottom left-hand corner is on point L prime. All right, and if our original one was, well, original, what do you think we should label this one? You got it, translated. So I want you to label this L translated. Okay. How did we translate it? 11 to the right. Remember, we can write a rule for this. So to the right, is that our X value or our Y value? Hopefully you remembered it's the X. And if we went 11 to the right, is that the positive direction, +11, or -11? You got it, +11. So X plus 11. Okay. What about our Y value? Our Y value went down 10. Is that a +10 or -10? Hopefully you got it. Y -10. So we've got the rule for our translation on that L. Okay. All right, so that's a review from yesterday. All we did was slide the L. Okay. Today we're getting into reflections. So before we show you a reflection, I want you to get the definition up at the top of your page for reflection. Okay. You should know what a reflection is. Maybe you don't know what it means in math, but it's a lot to the reflection that you already know. A reflection is a mirror image or flip. Okay. A mirror image or flip. So yesterday, remember I showed you how translation has SL for slide. Well, reflection has something too. It has FL for flip. How cool, right? So reflection is a flip or a mirror image. There's one other vocabulary word that you need. That one is line of reflection. Line of reflection. Okay. A line of reflection is simply the line a figure is flipped across. The line a figure is flipped across. All right, so let's do a reflection. I want you to take your purple L, okay? Put it in the place of the original. And what we want to do is we want to flip or reflect this L over the x-axis. Okay? So find your x-axis. Here's our x-axis. This is going to be our line of reflection. Line of reflection. Okay? So the line of reflection is the line that a figure is flipped across. So we want this L to flip across the x-axis. Okay? We don't want to slide it. We want it to flip. Okay? Now, how do we decide the right place for it to flip to? Okay? Where is it going to go over here? Okay? A good way to do that is look at your line of reflection and look how far away you are from it. So point L is 1, 2 above the line of reflection. So when we flip it, that point needs to come 2 below the line of reflection. Okay? L double prime, because this is the second time we moved it. Okay. All right, so when you flip your L, you got your purple one, you got the original, you're going to flip it over the x-axis, which is our line of reflection, and that bottom left corner goes where we just showed where the point should reflect to. All right, once you got it there, I want you to glue it down. Make sure you glue it as a flip and not a slide. Okay. So it was here, and it flipped across the x-axis. So kind of how you see yourself in the mirror. You see your words backwards, right? You see it upside down. All right, let's make sure we label this point. So it is -8, -2. And let's make sure we label our L. So this one was translated. This one's going to be reflected. And we're going to say how we reflected it, okay? So you got reflected over x-axis. Reflected over the x-axis. All right, and there can be a rule here when we flip it over the axis. Let's look at our coordinates. So your -8, the x coordinate, it stayed the same. Okay? So the x stayed the same. But the y coordinate, it was 2, it went to -2. We got the opposite of y, so -y. So our rule, if we just wanted the coordinates, is we would take the same x and we would take the opposite of the y. All right, you got one more L. That means we're not done yet. We're going to do one more reflection before we take some notes and do some examples, okay? All right, so this time we're going to flip it the other way. We're going to flip it over here somewhere. Okay, but we're not going to flip it over the y-axis. Okay, this time we're going to flip it over a line. We talked a little bit about lines yesterday. We're going to flip it over the line x equals -3. So remember, the way you find that line, here's our x-axis. We find where -3 is, and that's where we draw our line. Once you've got that line drawn, I want you to make sure to label it. So I'm going to turn my paper so that I can label it. This is x equals -3. Okay. This is also what we're going to use for the line of reflection this time. Okay. So x equals -3, and it's our line of reflection. Okay. All right, so we want to flip it. So remember, not a slide. We're not just sliding it over. Okay. We are flipping it over that line of reflection. Okay. Do we want it way over here? Hopefully you said no. We want it the same distance as the original from the line of reflection. So line of reflection starts here. Let's see how many points we need to go over. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to get to our original point L. So if it's 5 to the left, we need to go 5 to the right of that line of reflection. So here's my line of reflection. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. there's my new L. L triple prime, because it's the third time we've moved it. And let's put the coordinates there. Remember, we do coordinates from the origin, so from 0, 0 to 2. Right. Once you've got your point, make sure to glue your L down. Remember, don't do a slide. We're not sliding it over there. We're doing a reflection. So a reflection flips over the line. All right, I'll give you some time to glue it down. All right, you know we've got to label it. This time we reflected over, what was our line of reflection? X equals -3. All right, so you got these great notes with all your L's to show your reflections where they flipped. But you've also got what we did yesterday where we did a translation and slid. Okay, so let's get into some examples of reflections.
Alright, so now that you've got your notes completed with all your L's glued down on your coordinate grid, we're going to go ahead and do a few reflection examples. So number 1 in your activity says record the vertices of quadrilateral ABCD in the table. So first we want to plot, just write what the points are, what are the coordinates of ABCD. Okay, so I'm going to give you a moment to do that. If you need to, you can follow along. A goes over -6 and then down -4. Okay, so that's A. Then we've got B, which goes over -5 and down -2. We've got C, which is over -3 and down -2. And I'm sorry that these are kind of overlapping, guys. And then point D, which goes left, so -2, and then down -4. So you should have those 4 coordinates. You shouldn't have needed me to do that for you. Alright, let's go on to the next set of instructions. It says reflect the image across the y-axis and record the new vertices. So make sure that you identify which one's the y-axis. So here's our y-axis. So we want to flip this figure on the other side of that y-axis. Remember, a good way to know where it's going to go is to count how many spaces away from that line of reflection your points are. So if you look at point D is 2 spaces to the left of the y-axis. So then when we make our new point D, we want to go 2 spaces to the right of the y-axis. So point D is going to be here, D prime rather, okay? We've got point A that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spaces away from the y-axis. So we're going to go 6 spaces on the other side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for A prime. C is 1, 2, 3. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3 for C prime. And then B is 4, 5 away. So 4, 5. Okay. So now we've got our reflected image, okay? And we know that it's reflected because A was all the way out here on the outside. Now A is all the way out on the outside on the other one. If this were a translation, A would be on the left side of the figure like it is in the original one. Okay, so we need to go ahead and record those coordinates. You all can go ahead and do that now. So A is at 6, -4. B is at 5, -2. C is at 3, -2. And D is at 2, -4. Okay. Now before we go to the next reflection, let's go ahead and answer some of these questions about when we reflected across the y-axis. Okay. So it says, the first question, question A says, what happened to the x-coordinate under the reflection across the y-axis. So remember, the x coordinate is this first one. So what happened? Okay, so in the original figure, all of our x's are negative. In our new figure, oops, all of our x's are positive. So our x's are opposite. So what happened to our exit? We got the opposite x. Okay. The next question asks us what happened to the y coordinates under the reflection. So remember, y is your second one here. And if you notice, you've got -4, -4, -2, -2. So they are the same. So we've got the same y when we reflect across the y-axis. So our y stayed the same when we reflected across the y-axis. What rule describes the reflection across the y-axis? So let's look at what happened to our x's and what happened to our y's. So our x's, remember we said we had the opposite, okay? So we've got the opposite, or the negative sign with the x, and then our y's stay the same. So we can keep the y the same as it was. Okay. All right, so let's look at the same thing with the next set of directions here. The next say reflection, say then reflect the original image across the x-axis and record the new vertices. So here's our x-axis, it's our new line of reflection, and we're going to reflect our original image, okay, across that x-axis. So it's going to come out on the other side, it's going to be a flip across that x-axis. So again, count how many spaces away we are from the x-axis. So B is 1, 2 spaces away. So we want to go 1, 2 spaces on the other side of the x-axis for B prime. Okay. A prime is 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. C is just 1, 2 down. We're going to go 1, 2 up. And then D is 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4 on the other side of the x-axis. Okay, and now we've got our reflected image where our image has flipped across the x-axis. Let's go ahead and write down those coordinates. You should be able to do this on your own. I'll give you a moment to go ahead and write those down. Okay, so our coordinates for, and I shouldn't have put prime, I should have put A prime prime because this is the second time we've moved this figure. Okay. All right, so our coordinates are -6, 4, -5, 2, -3, 2, and -2, 4. So the first question, again, we're looking at what happens here. So when we reflect it across the x-axis, ask us what happened to the x-coordinate. So remember, the x-coordinate is the first one here. Okay, so when we compare it to the original, we have the same x. The x's stayed the same. Okay, so when you reflect across the x-axis, you have the same x. Now we want to know what happened to the y-coordinates. The y is our second one. Okay, and notice the y's were negative, they went positive. So we have an opposite y. Okay, so now when we look for a rule to describe what happens when we reflect it across the x-axis, remember we had the same x, so we would just put an x, okay, but we had an opposite y. So the negative sign represents opposite of the y. So hopefully you were able to pick up that when you reflect across the x-axis, you have the same x. When you reflect across the y-axis, you keep the same y. Okay? Let's look at your next example. Okay? It says to first record the vertices of triangle ABC. You should be able to do that on your own. Okay? So A is 4, 6. B is 5, 2, and C is 2, 3. Okay. Next, it asks us to reflect the image across the line x equals 1. And we've talked about this a little bit yesterday. Remember, to find that line, we look at the x-axis, okay, and we look for 1, and we draw a line where the 1 is on the x-axis. Okay, so this is our line of reflection, x equals 1. Okay? And we want to reflect it across that axis. All right, so we want to, remember, count how many spaces it is from the line of reflection. So currently A is 1, 2, 3 spaces away from that line of reflection. We're going to go 3 on the other side of that line of reflection. Okay. B is currently 1, 2, 3, 4 away. So we're going to go 4 away from that line of reflection. 1, 2, 3, 4 on the other side. Okay, and then C is only 1 away from the line of reflection, so we're going to go 1 away from the line of reflection. Okay, you've got some time to go ahead and record those coordinates. If you all need to pause the video, do that. If you don't, I'll give you a little bit of time here. So remember, we're recording those coordinates. Start from the origin. You should have A at -2, 6. B at -3, 2. And C at 0, 3. Okay. All right, the next set of instructions says for us to reflect the original figure across the line y equals 1. Okay, so remember, to find that line, we look on our y-axis where the 1 is, and we draw a line through it. So we want to reflect on the opposite side of this line. So we want our original figure to flip on the other side. I want you all to go ahead and pause the video here while you go ahead and plot that reflection and record the coordinates. All right, you should be able to go ahead and check your answer. Hopefully your picture looks something like what I got here, where you flip the figure on the other side of that line, y equals 1. Your coordinates should have come out 2, 5, -4, 5, 0, and 2, -1. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and flip the page and try our next one. I want you to go ahead and pause the video while you plot the coordinates stated here for number 3. All right, hopefully you've got your figures drawn now with your quadrilateral ABCD and ABCD prime. Hopefully you didn't get tripped up by the fact that that grid went by 2's instead of 1's. Okay, our first question here asks, which value changed in each coordinate? Well, let's look. Here's my x value for A. Here's my x value for A prime. Did it change? No. Okay. But when I look at the y values, I've got 1, -9. So which value changed? That would be the y coordinate. Okay. The second question asks us, what is the line of reflection? So can you tell where this flipped? Okay. I think it's pretty clear to see that the figure flipped down. So that means the line, if we look at the B's, B is 1 away from this -4 line here. Okay, so that would be our line of reflection. Now, we need to know what equals -4. Okay, which axis is it crossing? So this is the y-axis, okay, that goes up and down, and we're crossing it at -4. So that line would be y equals -4. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and give you a chance to pause the video while you get the vertices of quadrilateral MATH plotted on your coordinate grid and then reflected over the line x equals -2. All right, now this one may have been a little bit tricky for you since it actually crosses over your line of reflection this time. But remember, every time all we did is take the points to the opposite side of the line where it was. So if A is 1 on the right of the line of reflection, we're going to take it 1 on the left of the line of reflection. Okay? And I know that those are a little bit off on the lines. I'm going to try to make that a little bit better. Okay? M from the line of reflection is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're going to go 6 on the other side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. T is 1 on the left, so we're going to go 1 on the right. So this was A prime. And then H is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we're going to go 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. And so now we have our reflected image. And it does overlap a little bit, but you can see how it reflects across that line. I'll give you some time to go ahead and write those coordinates down. You all can pause the video if you need the time here. All right, M prime should have come out to 4, 5. A prime is -3, +5. T prime, -1, +1. And H prime is 6, 1. Hopefully you plotted all those correctly. Let's move on to your next example. It says, after a transformation, so we don't know whether this is a reflection or a translation, points H, J, K, L have respective images H prime, J prime, K prime, L prime. The coordinates of the original points and their images are shown in this table. Okay? So we need to look and see what we can find out. The first answer choice A says the translation to up 6 units. Okay? So remember, up 6 units, that means, are you looking at the x-axis that goes up or the y-axis that goes up? Okay? Y. So that means every y should have added 6. So let's look here. 3, does it add 6 to get to 9? Yes. -2, does it add 6 to get to 14? No, it doesn't. So that answer choice is out. Okay, so now let's look at the next answer choice. A reflection over the line x equals 6. So remember, we would find the line by looking at our x here. We would make it at a line here to where our values started on one side. So like think about 0, 3. 0 up 3. Okay. We're now at 0 up 9. Okay. Is that a reflection over this line? No, because if it were, our point would end up on the other side of that line. So our second answer choice is out as well. Okay. So if it helps you guys to draw these things out, then draw them out. Okay. C says a reflection over the line y equals 6. So remember, y-axis, we would draw a line at wherever 6 might be. Okay, so let's look and see if this one makes sense. So our original point is 0, +3. So say this is +3 here. Our next point is 0, +9. So 0, this is 3 on this side of 6. Would 9 be 3 on the other side of 6? That looks like a reflection over the line y equals 6. Okay. And of course we can check C to or D to make sure it says a translation to the right 6 units. Remember, that would mean our x value would have to go 6 up, and it does not. Okay, so the correct answer here is answer choice C. Okay. All right, I want you to try number 6 on your own. Remember, if it helps you, draw out a coordinate grid to help you out when answering that question. So go ahead and try number 6 on your own and number 7. All right, on number 6 you had point A prime, which was -2, +8. So I just kind of drew a point up there. And then you've got point 8, the A that was 2, 8. Okay. Which of the following could be the transformation? Okay. So reflection over the x-axis. Well, here's x. Did we reflect over the x-axis? No. A reflection over the y-axis. Here's y. Did we reflect over the y-axis? Yes, that's definitely a possibility. But let's check the other answer choices. C says a translation, 4 units up. That means a slide. Did it go up 4 units? No, it didn't, so that one's out. D says a reflection over the line x equals 1. Okay, so x equals 1. That means that we would be on the other side of 1, just one place. So that one doesn't work out as well. So B is the correct answer there. Okay. In problem 7, you had suppose point P has coordinates x, y. So I just put a point here that's in the first quadrant because I know that that would be a positive x and a positive y. Okay. It says after reflection across the x-axis, so here's x-axis, so that means it goes down across the x-axis, which represents the coordinates of P prime. So let's think about this. We're going in the positive direction here, okay, and then we're going down, which is negative direction, okay. So it looks like our x stays the same, okay, but our y value is the one that has changed to the opposite. So let's see if we see one that has a positive x and a negative y. A shows you're going to take the opposite of both. B has a positive x and a negative y. C has a negative x and a positive y. D has a negative y and x, and those are in the wrong order. So B would be the correct answer there as well. All right, guys, hopefully we've done plenty of examples of reflections, and you should be able to get started on your homework in class. I will see you on Monday, and quick reminder, extra credit that I gave you after your test is due Monday, as well as any quiz corrections, okay? So quiz corrections and extra credit are due Monday, okay? You all have a great weekend.